Some of the most damaging relationships are the hardest ones to explain, and they don't have to look extreme in order to be deeply harmful. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we make sense of what never quite made sense. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin moving forward. You need a coach. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Welcome to the next CNG community chat. I'm Renee Swanson, and these chats are small, guided conversations where I invite listeners just like you to join me for a reflective discussion around topics related to covert narcissistic abuse and healing. Today's topic is when you finally said it out loud. That moment when you first spoke honestly about what was happening in your relationship, the fear that came with it, the vulnerability, the relief, and sometimes the confusion when the response that you got wasn't quite what you needed or expected. I was joined today by David, who was generous enough to share his story openly and honestly. David was married for 17 years, has 3 teenage sons, and has been navigating life after divorce from a covert narcissist, including the very real challenge of co-parenting with one. His perspective as a man walking this road is something I am deeply grateful for, because those voices are not heard nearly enough. So whether you're still in it, just getting out, or somewhere in the middle of figuring out what healing even looks like for you, I think you're going to find something in this conversation that resonates with you. Now let's get into it. All right, so I have David here with me today for the next CNG community chat. I'm really excited to get started on this topic. David, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Renee, I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me and look forward to our conversation. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this. I think it's just crucial for, we gather so much information from experts in the field, but I think it's time for people to hear from each other. So,
Definitely
so
agree.
the
Definitely
topic
agree.
today is when you finally said it out loud, when that finally happened. And I'm going to ask, do you remember when you first said it out loud to somebody?
Yeah, that's a real good question. I was married for 17 years. I have three teenage sons now. Um, we've been split up for about 3 years. But to answer the question about like when I really said it out loud, there was always things that were popping in my head that just didn't feel right. And most specifically, the biggest thing out loud that I kept going back to was passive aggressive behavior. And I would say that to myself. I'd say it out loud even at times. Like this is so passive aggressive. And as we were kind of having some of these critical conversations about, hey, are we staying together? Are we splitting up? Like how that's going to look. I really started doing my own therapy, my own research, my own investigation, like on YouTube and Google and podcasts about, all right, we have this big, I guess, symptom of passive aggressiveness. What are some of the other things like that I can kind of how can I handle that and what does this look like? And the more I did the research on like the passive aggressive piece, once I stumbled, because you go down that rabbit hole and all of a sudden you stumble on not only narcissism, but specifically covert narcissism. I got into there. And as I'm looking at all of these triggers, these symptoms, these issues that fall under that covert narcissism umbrella, I'm sitting there nodding to my head, yes, 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 yes. And I have a lot of them here written down that I could even share to go through. But like the start was really that passive aggressive. But then when I got to covert narcissism and the definition, and I'm going through this, I'm like, wow, this is me. This is really it. And I just can't believe it took so long to be married to someone for so long to, finally find exactly what's going on, at least as really that starting point to be able to, address, cope, handle, get yourself better
Mhm.
from all of that overall.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really challenging to put our finger on this because it's so subtle, so insidious, so easy to excuse away, so easy to blame on ourselves. Like, you've heard my podcast, you know all the things. But then we look at it and go, how in the world did I not see this sooner? And I mean, I've met with people who've been in these marriages 30 and 40 years who are telling me that, which, I can't fathom with my 21-year marriage of, I mean, they're double what I went through. So I do say on that note, give yourself grace. Like, so you found it at 17 years. It definitely could have been worse. It could have been better for all of us. Um, do you remember who you said it to the first time you said it out loud?
Well, it actually, do I remember who I said it to? Yeah, probably a family member, probably my brother. And
Okay.
and really what you're it's so subtle, it's so behind the scenes, it's so sneaky, it's so passive aggressive, it's so, you know, they appear really like she appeared really shy and meek and like that death by a thousand bee stings that we've talked about, and or a thousand paper cuts, whatever that is. It's so true because when you talk to someone that doesn't have the understanding or their knowledge about it, they're like, well, that's not really that. It's hard for them really to see how all these big things or these things just add up. It's not like the
Mhm.
overt narcissist where they're, belligerently aggressive. It's that subtle behind the scenes. And it's just so hard to pinpoint and talk through and have it be relatable to someone else if they haven't thought about it or haven't been through it themselves. And I know one of your most recent episodes, you talked about that, and I listened to it and I was like, it makes so much sense because it was so hard, to talk through that with people because part of that, is the therapeutic way of communicating, but like being able to bring it all together and talk with a family member, a friend, a a trusted coworker, whatever it is, like bringing that all together. It's just like some of the most of the times I kind of got, oh well, maybe that's not that bad, or
Mhm.
you're a man, you can handle it, kind of thing, or that kind of thing. So
Right. Now,
and
I remember the words, even as the words were coming out of my mouth, I thought, man, I sound petty.
yeah,
I sound trivial and petty, like this is not a big deal. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of everything that was happening and everything that had been going on, it was a big deal because it was the accumulation of all the thousand paper cuts or bee stings, not the individual ones.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean the other big factor with this that I've really been thinking about too, like you said you were married for 21 years. We've had there's been other guests that have been on that have been married for upwards of 40 years. Well, when you get married to someone, you're like, we have to work together. Especially when you have kids, like we have three teenage sons. Like you just like it's going to be hard. There are going to be struggles, but that's just the reality of it. And you give everything you got for the greater good for the family. We're very blessed and very fortunate to have three amazing sons. So if I have to deal with, some mistreatment or not
Mhm.
being seeing eye to eye with things, I was just kind of like, I guess I'll just deal with it because I want, like us being together in a group, in my eyes, initially, was this is going to be the best and most successful way that we can raise the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a valid desire, it's a valid belief. I mean, everything about that resonates with me. But then you start comparing that to the reality that you're living. And that's where it starts getting hard. When you first said it and you think that the first time you said it out loud was to your brother maybe,
Yeah.
were you believed? Did you feel like you were believed right off the bat?
No, no, I don't think so. Well, I mean, in terms of like, so like for instance, like with my brother, like he knows that I would, put piece things together, articulate it, pull it all together. It's not that I wasn't believed, like this whole thing of like the symptoms together or the issues together was something. But quite frankly, like people that haven't dealt with this and really had, done the therapy, done the work, and really like seen it front and center, you don't know. Like, even if someone had been through having a covert narcissist spouse or, family member, whatever, like, there's one thing to actually go through it and see it, but then you also have to take it to the next step to kind of see everything in front of you and say, hey, this makes sense. This is it. And if you haven't done that, it's hard for someone to pull all of that together and be a really a resource beyond just someone listening to what you're saying. If that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I found that they believed the individual stories, but the individual stories were downplayed, which made sense because the individual stories are small and petty, like we talked about, the bee stings. But it's hard for somebody who has not lived this to get the whole picture of what's really going on and the amount of damage that it's doing because they see the individual stories. So I was believed, but the magnitude of it wasn't understood.
Yes, agreed, absolutely. And when you start peeling back the onion and looking into it further, so many of these traits of a covert narcissist was just right up there in front of me that I I always kind of knew in the back of my mind, or I observed that I went through it. But when you hear it from someone else, like for instance, like Renee with your podcast, which is I'd like to kind of talk about how my journey's been over the last few years, but like listening to your specific ways of articulating some of these tactics that the covert narcissists do, when you actually hear, like, maybe you've went through it or you've heard it before, but until you actually hear it from someone else, hear it in a clear, concise way of communicating, like what you do with your podcast, it kind of gives you that affirmation, like, yes, I really went through it. That was a specific thing that happened to me, to help you get a clearer picture on the story. So um hearing that clearly, like I said, through your messaging, really helped bring it to the next level with me too.
Wow. I'm honored to hear that, and I'm really glad to hear that. I hear from a lot of different people that, hearing someone else's story, sometimes it's easier to make sense out of someone else's story than it is our own, okay?
Yep.
But then when you connect with it, you hear their story and you go, "Oh my word, I get what they're saying." Okay? Him or her doesn't matter, but I hear it. I feel their words, and when it resonates deep in your soul, you know it. You know that those words are jumping out at you for a reason. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And back to the no empathy, which is a big one, never admitting you're wrong, not being equals, as far as being a parenting team together.
mhm.
And then just like not following through with like what we agreed upon. And then all of a sudden we're just having the same conversation over and over and over. And I'm like, what are we doing here? And then now what I'm really going through now is, the first few years after we split up, with, you know, being divorced, was really about just healing myself and recognizing tactics and strategies that I can employ for myself so I'm healthy in this toxic, covert narcissistic relationship. but now it's triggering to the next steps with the kids. So
Mm.
it kind of cooled off for a while, Renee. Like after we're divorced, I'm in my own house, and basically I did a lot of gray rock. I did a lot of I'm not engaging. I did a lot of you know clear small responses to things. But now what really triggered me to start doing more research, especially with your platform, is like the stakes are it. I knew it wasn't going to ever go away, but it's ramped up even more intensely recently. And now the kids are involved, and they're each involved in their own way with the three of them, in their own toxic pattern of manipulation with with my
Yeah.
ex-wife. And now I'm having to go through that piece with keeping them safe, coming up with strategies, being calm myself, like because you don't want your kids to be hurt. You don't want long-term implications of them being damaged,
Hmm.
growing up in their lives. So that's really where this has evolved now for me is my kids and keeping them safe and what it's going to look like and hoping, especially my older son, I'm seeing some not tactics, but characteristics that I've seen in my ex-wife now coming through him that I'm concerned about, So
Hmm.
just looking at the bigger picture, like, okay, maybe that's kind of the other thing I wanted to talk about with the group too. Like yeah, while I felt like I had it somewhat resolved, you know, after the divorce and maybe the first year after, but if you're co-parenting or counter-parenting with somebody, it's never going to go away. So
Hmm.
um,
You're
keeping in
not
mind,
wrong.
you really have to stay on top of it. And now I'm having to up my game myself to be able to do that with therapy and research and books and podcasts.
Yeah. I mean, it really brings home what I've found is it really brings home, when you're on an airplane flying and they say put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help your kid.
Yep.
And to
Yes.
me, this whole journey with covert narcissism really brought that home because I knew, and like you said, it kind of upped the ante when I started seeing the impact it was having on my children. And that to me was the driving force that caused me to go, I got to figure this out. I got to get help. I got to find, the therapist or the counselor or the book or whatever it is that I needed to find. And the whole purpose was so that I could help my kids. But it ended up really like turning my life around and helping me to see the work I needed to be doing. And so I hear what you're saying, that when the kids start getting involved as they get older and get into these teenage years, and now they're, impacted in their own ways, you really got to bring your own A game to the table, not from a reactive point, but from a healed point, not necessarily healed, but healing. You got to be on that path to be able to help your kids.
Yes. No, absolutely agree. And, um, you know, a lot of it was exactly like you said, going through the process and healing myself first, which was great. And if I'm not in a healed state or in a good state myself, like that's going to impact the way I do everything in my life, whether that's with
Mhm.
job, whether that's with your health, whether that's being a good quality parent. Um, However that looks, obviously those are some three of the biggest things, that we have to manage in our lives. And if you don't, if you're not at the top of where you're at from, that mental and physical standpoint, that's going to trigger down to, to everything else. And
Mhm.
you mentioned, like, I know you said staying out of that reactive state. That's exactly it. Like, I want to be in the proactive, like, anticipation type phase where I can calmly, go through how things are unfolding rather than these big issues coming up. And, you know, at times, like reacting in an unnecessary way where, part of that's work, with that reactive abuse that the covert narcissist throw at you. You get picked on 50 times, and then the
Hmm.
the, the 49th time you're like, I've had enough. It's kind
It's
of the
hard.
same process with that. So yeah, it's really the having your own game plan first, and then just continuing to add to your toolkit as you grow. So
Yeah,
huge
you're not
things.
wrong. You're not wrong at all. So when you finally did say it out loud to your family and your family member or even to friends
Yes.
then at that point, what stopped you before that? What was there a period of time where you kind of knew this isn't right or there's something wrong here, but you weren't voicing it yet?
Well, there was a period of time I did feel like it was a very lonely phase, where covert nurse, and she wouldn't involve me with things, and there's that kind of laundry list of ways where they kind of deplete your soul and deplete, like, the individual person that you are, and don't allow you to have your voice, your say, um your own thoughts. Like, I really got to that point, and it really affected me from a health standpoint too. Like, I didn't realize it, but I had a lot of stress and anxiety about that. And I just kind of wrote it off as, hey, I have a busy job. I was in the corporate pharmaceutical research industry. I was a study manager for 20 years. I had a busy job. I have three younger kids. They're active, they're busy. Of course you're going to be stressed, and of course you're going to have anxiety. I mean, it's just the reality of what your situation is. But with the manipulation tactics that were thrown on me and everything else, I was really looking back, I realized I lost a lot of myself, and lost of who I was, which allowed me not to, like, progress in that standpoint. And um, when I finally was able to connect some of the dots and talk through it and say it out loud, um, I did have conversations with family members and friends, and it did feel good being able to, not only kind of, I guess, quantify, like, what's going on or pull it all together as far as the story goes. Um, but at the same time, it's not like I'm a registered, therapist where I can make that type of a diagnosis for someone, and people are like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, even when I was having conversations with the attorneys, like, the it kind of got shaken off sideways, with some of these things. It was kind
It
of
does.
right. Like, it wasn't, I mean, there were facts about some of the implications with the divorce, as far as there was financial issues and other things. But, like, the like, kind of the dark manipulation tactics and things that I went through, it was really hard to pull that together and quantify that in the divorce process, and also with conversations with friends and family too.
Yeah. Well, and I get that. And before you said it out loud, I know for me that it was easy, again, like we said, to excuse all the little things, and I wasn't pulling the whole picture together.
Yeah.
And when I finally said it out loud to somebody, then it started to pull the picture together. Then I started to see the pattern. Then I started, like, it all of a sudden it just became more real. Before that, I could deny it. I could excuse it away. I could, well, he's really tired today, or he's had a bad day, or, I could come up with all the, excuses in the world. But when I started saying it out loud, it's like it took away my ability to downplay it. I couldn't downplay it anymore because I'd finally said it out loud.
Yeah. And Renee, I'll be honest, I think over the last really, the last 6 months to a year is when I really started having to get more therapy, investigate, do more research. And that's when I found you and your podcast. And it's funny, like even talking out loud now again to family members and friends, even though you're right, they may not quote unquote get it or pull all of it together. I do feel that it has helped with moving me in the right direction from a therapy standpoint and um, getting things, um, just overall helping with my nervous system. To be honest with you, like it's
Mhm.
not good to just keep it all inside. Um, even though I was really the one truly dealing with it, but you're right. Like just the process of like talking through it, which is one of the things in the toolkit, right? Therapy,
Absolutely.
talking through it, counselor, journaling, reading books, listening to podcasts, like all those things together that are in your toolkit. The one thing that I think has really taken me to the next step in my kind of second phase of going through this is the talking out loud piece. Yeah.
Good. I'm really glad to hear that because it helps you to then be able to put it into words, but also to truly validate what you went through. So it brings your awareness up, which is huge. Awareness is steps, 1 through 7 because it's such a big
Yeah.
deal. And
Yep.
as your awareness goes up and you start putting it into words, you're now validating what you went through and you don't need somebody else to validate it anymore. And that's a crucial step to be in is when you can validate for yourself what you went through.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Okay.
agreed.
So if someone is listening out there and maybe they haven't said it out loud yet, because one of the things I do find with covert narcissism in particular is there's this period of time that you kind of know something's not right. You can't quite put your finger on what's not right. And there's this period of time between that and the time that you do discover or you do find that one resource that jumps off the pages at you that all of a sudden all the light bulbs are going off. So when you're in that space that between, getting your or knowing something's not okay and getting your eyes open to where you can voice some of this, what would you say to those people who are sitting in that spot?
It's a great question. Trust your gut. Your gut's going to tell you something's off. And that will alone increase your awareness just to observe some things that are going on. And from there, start keeping notes. Journal's great. I use a combination of a journal, like a written journal, and then I do like a notes tab on my phone that I jot down notes, and it helps keep track of those things. And it's not like you're building a case or anything, but you're just brainstorming. It's kind of like a brain dump. Being able to um, put your thoughts to paper, to put your thoughts to notes, and when your gut's telling you something, recognize it, and then
Yeah.
um, start there. And you can start small if you want to keep going down that rabbit hole from a research standpoint. That's great, but at a minimum, in terms of a starting point, definitely, like I said, just listen to your body, listen to your gut, and you know go from there.
hmm I have a lot of people mention at times that, I feel bad just writing down all the bad things about my partner.
Yeah.
We all have bad days, we all have bad moments. I wouldn't want somebody keeping track of all my bad days, on a journal or on a
Yes.
notepad. And in that conversation with them, one of the things that I do point out is, look, whether you write those memories down or not, your body already knows them. The memories are there whether you put them on this journal or not. And so all we're doing is kind of moving the storage unit, the one that's in, deep inside of you, in your head and in your heart and in your soul, and let's put it over here because now we can work with it. It doesn't mean you gotta jump up and run out the door and leave your marriage today and blow up your world. It doesn't
Yes.
mean any of that. But in order to heal, it does mean you're gonna need to bring all of this to your conscious memory. Put it in front of you so you can work with it.
Very well said. And I think going along with that, what I first realized myself was, I mentioned the anxiety and the stress that I was having. Um, I knew something was deep down was just not right. And my body was telling me that. And that obviously that's a harder thing to uncover than actual events and things that you're seeing from like a covert narcissism standpoint, right? You could see those up front and center. But when you have kind of those hidden symptoms that are in your body that are that quite honestly go with a lot of different things: stress, anxiety, gut
Hmm.
issues, brain fog, all these type of things. um, they go along the lines with a lot of different things that are out there in the world. And but I do know that the experience that I went through really and heightened and flared up a lot of those stressors and anxieties that were deep down in my body before I actually got to the point where I started journaling and taking notes and things like that.
Yeah. No, it definitely takes its toll on your physical health. Like this kind of stress level within your home, what's supposed to be your safe space, this kind of stress level, it does create that right environment for a lot of stress-induced issues, illnesses, and physical issues. So, well, David, thank you so much for sharing your story on here and for speaking, to this audience. I think it's crucial for people to hear from others that are going through this or have gone through this. And I love, to bring men on that are guests here that can speak to this audience because we don't get enough of that out there. And so even from that perspective, I really thank you for sharing your story.
Hey, my pleasure, Renee. I appreciate it. And thank you for all you do. Really, I'm not just saying this because I'm on here. You've really helped me out a lot. I really resonate with your content and your voice and your clear communication. So thanks for all you do, for the group and for everyone out there that's going through these scenarios. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk today.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for voicing that. I'm just honored to be on this journey with so many people that I don't even know, but I'm out there on that journey with them. So thank you, David.
My pleasure.
I want to thank David again for showing up and being so willing to speak honestly about his journey. What stayed with me most from our conversation is something he said toward the end, that talking out loud has been one of the most important tools in his healing. And I can certainly resonate with that. Not because everyone around him fully understood, but because saying it out loud helped him to stop downplaying it himself. And I think that's really the heart of today's topic. We can carry something heavy for a long time. We can excuse it, rationalize it, keep it quiet, and the moment we say it out loud, something shifts. It becomes real in a very different way. And that reality, as uncomfortable as it can be, is actually where healing begins. If you're still in that space where something doesn't feel right, but you haven't found the words yet, I hope that David's story gives you a little more permission to trust what your body is already telling you. Your gut knows. And when you're ready, the words will come. Thank you for listening. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you're interested in joining a future community chat, the link to request a spot is in the show notes. Go to my website at covertnarcissism.com and click on community chat. The upcoming topics are there. I'll see you next time. And until then, I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin to move forward. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Your story matters, and you deserve to be heard without judgment. Check out my coaching services at my website, again, covertnarcissism.com. And don't forget to subscribe, to thumbs up, to follow, to like this podcast so that you can get more empowering episodes like this one and to help us continue spreading the word so that our community can continue to grow. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those she has talked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support any allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of this material and information provided.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.